Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday, right? Hey, Cheryl T, how are you? You're the first one in the chat this morning. Y'all, I am not liking this time change of me going live earlier. For y'all, let me see. Let me open my bedroom door up. Since I am home alone, I'll open it up. So, anyways, I'm going to try to stick it out doing the 10 a.m. live streams, but I may go back to 10:30 here next week or something. Who knows? Anyways, this morning we're going to be talking about the case of Dr. Jeffrey MacDonald. Now, he made the news yesterday, the true crime news, because he went before a judge trying to get an early release from prison. They called it a compassionate release from prison because he is 77 years old now and his health is failing. He's got something wrong with his kidneys where he needs dialysis. Now, the judge has not ruled on it yet. Don't know when he will rule on it. I don't think that Jeffrey MacDonald will ever get out of prison. He was convicted of brutally murdering his entire family February 17th, 1970. And we're going to read all about Mr. Jeffrey MacDonald this morning. Hey, Sapphire, good morning. Girl, I'm not liking this time change. I may have to go back to my regular time, 10:30. That's what I was telling Mark this morning because my regular chat's not getting in here and I just don't like it. Hey, Biz Love. I have my nights and days mixed up. I am only awake because business to take care of. They amended my husband's death certificate. I'm not sure how to feel. What does that mean, Booze Love? They amended your husband's death certificate. Hey, Morgan, I just watched this documentary. Isn't it a good documentary? Now, he still maintains his innocence. I'm going to read y'all the whole story because a lot of people may not be familiar with this case. Crap, this happened 10 years before I was born. I wasn't born until 1980. This happened in 1970 at 544 Castle Drive, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Have y'all ever seen the movie Fatal Vision? If you've not seen the movie Fatal Vision, you can watch it right here on YouTube. Hey, Juju, good morning. It's messing with me too. Repeatedly say, shit, I'm late. I know. I think we're going to go back to our regular time. I was trying to change the time because usually Mark's up roaming around the house at about the time I get ready to go live and gets my dogs in an uproar. So I thought I'll go live earlier and I'll be done by the time, he's getting up around the house wanting to run in and out and do errands. But I just don't like it. You just got here in time, Juju. I have not started. I'm getting ready to, though. I want to pull up a picture. I won't be able to see y'all's chat for a little bit. Because I want to pull up something and read it. Y'all know I'm not good at explaining. I'd rather just read it to y'all. I feel like I'm not good at explaining, that is. So, the victims were Colette MacDonald, Jeffrey MacDonald's wife, Kimberly MacDonald, 5 years old, and Kristen MacDonald, 2 years old. They all were beat with the board, stabbed with a knife repeatedly, and an ice pick. Before I get into the case, here's what prosecutors think. They think Jeffrey MacDonald and his wife argued in the bedroom. He had had affairs, numerous affairs, I reckon. They argued in the bedroom. He attacked her. Somehow, Colette got her hands on a board, and she tried to hit him. He takes the board from her and whacks her. As he's drawing back the board, the 5-year-old little girl, Kimberly, walks in, and they think he accidentally, fatally wounded Kimberly with the board on accident. He takes her back to the bedroom. He decides he's going to cover up the crime. So he stabs every one of them. Let me just put it that way. He stabs every one of them with a paring knife. Then he takes an ice pick to every one of them, Colette, Kimberly, Kristen. Then he wounds himself and calls 911. Now, he says that, I think he said 3 or 4 intruders entered his home, and they had it out for him because he was not sympathetic to the drug addicts in the area. He was some kind of drug counselor, and he didn't like to give them methadone and things. And so that was his claim, that these intruders, had it out for him because he wouldn't write on methadone. Okay, let's get into it. Let me just read a second. Let me stop screen sharing. On February 17th, 1970, a horrific crime took place in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Army base of U.S. Army surgeon Captain Jeffrey MacDonald. The doctor claimed strangers had broken in, attacked him, slaughtered his pregnant wife. Oh, yeah, I forgot to add that. Colette was pregnant with a little boy. Slaughtered his pregnant wife and their 2 young daughters in a manner that was eerily resembled the recent Tate LaBianca murders carried out by the Manson family in California. Army investigators didn't buy his story. MacDonald was charged with the murders but later released. Though the case was dismissed, it was far from over. In 1974, a grand jury convened. Jeffrey MacDonald, now a civilian, was indicted for murder the following year. In 1979, he was tried, found guilty, and sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. Even in the face of conviction, Jeffrey MacDonald had stoutly maintained his innocence and launched numerous appeals. Many people believe, others do not, including Fatal Vision author Joe McGinnis, who was engaged by Jeffrey MacDonald to write a book exonerating him, but got a book condemning him instead. Jeffrey and Colette MacDonald's bright beginnings. Jeffrey MacDonald and Colette Stevenson grew up in New York. They'd known one another since grade school. They began dating in high school, and the relationship continued during their college years. Jeffrey was at Princeton, and Colette attended Skidmore. Just 2 years into college, in the fall of 1963, the couple decided to marry. By April 1964, their first child, Kimberly, was born. Colette put her education on hold to become a full-time mother, while Jeffrey continued his studies. After Princeton, MacDonald attended Northwestern University Medical School in Chicago. While there, the couple's second child, Kristen Jean, was born in May 1967. Times were tough financially for the young family, but the future looked so bright. After graduating from medical school the following year and completing his internship at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York City, Jeffrey MacDonald decided to join the U.S. Army. The family relocated to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Advancement came quickly for Captain MacDonald, who was soon appointed group surgeon to the Special Forces, the Green Berets. Colette was enjoying her role as a busy homemaker and mother of 2, but she had plans to return to college with the eventual goal of becoming a teacher. Over the Christmas holidays in 1969, Colette let friends know that Jeff would not be going to Vietnam, as they feared he might. For the MacDonalds, life seemed normal and happy. Colette was expecting a 3rd child, a boy, in July, but just 2 months into the new year, Colette's life and those of her 2 young daughters would come to a tragic and terrifying end. A horrific crime scene. Let me get a drink of coffee. On February 17th, 1970, an emergency call was forwarded from an operator to the military police at Fort Bragg. Captain Jeffrey MacDonald was pleading for help. He begged for someone to send an ambulance to his home. When the military police got to the MacDonald residence, they found 26-year-old Colette, along with her 2 children, 5-year-old Kristen and 2-year-old Kimberly, dead. Lying beside Colette was Captain Jeffrey MacDonald, his arms stretched over his wife's body. MacDonald was wounded but alive. Kenneth Micah, one of the first military police to arrive on the scene, discovered the bodies of Colette and the two girls. Colette was on her back, her chest partially covered by a torn pajama top. That pajama top belonged to Jeffrey MacDonald. Her face and head had been battered. She was covered in blood. Kimberly's head had been bludgeoned. The child also suffered stab wounds on her neck. Kristen had been stabbed in her chest and back 33 times with a knife and 15 more with an ice pick. The word pig was scrawled in blood on the headboard in the master bedroom. And I just want to say, Jeffrey MacDonald had a magazine and he had been reading up on the Tate LaBianca murders. Jeffrey MacDonald appeared to be unconscious. Micah performed mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. When MacDonald came to, he complained of not being able to breathe. Micah says that while MacDonald did request medical attention, he attempted to shove him away, urgently demanding that the military police tend to his children and wife instead. The woman in the floppy hat. When Micah questioned MacDonald about what had happened, MacDonald told him 3 male intruders, accompanied by a hippie-type woman, had broken into the home and attacked him and his family. According to Jeffrey, a blonde female, wearing a floppy hat, high-heel boots, and holding a candle and chanted, "Acid is groovy, kill the pigs," as the carnage took place. Micah recalled noticing a woman who fit that description while en route to the crime scene. She was standing in the rain outside on the street not far from the MacDonald home. Micah informed a superior at the Army's Criminal Investigation Division about having seen the woman, but says his observations were ignored. The CID chose to remain focused on the physical evidence and statements Jeffrey MacDonald made regarding the crimes to formulate their theory of the case. The first murder charges. At the hospital, Jeffrey was treated for wounds to his head, as well as various cuts and bruises to his shoulders, chest, hands, and fingers. He also sustained several puncture wounds around his heart, including one that punctured his lung, causing it to collapse. MacDonald remained hospitalized for a week, leaving only to attend the funerals of his wife and daughters. MacDonald was released from the hospital on February 25, 1970. On April 6, 1970, Jeffrey MacDonald underwent an extensive interrogation by CID investigators, who concluded that MacDonald's injuries were superficial and self-inflicted. They believed that his story about intruders was a fabrication created as a cover-up, and that MacDonald himself was responsible for the murders. On May 1, 1970, Captain Jeffrey MacDonald was formally charged by the U.S. Army for the murder of his family. 5 months later, however, Colonel Warren Rock, the presiding officer over the Article 32 hearing, recommended that the charges be dropped, citing insufficient evidence to indict. MacDonald's defense civilian defense attorney, Bernard L. Siegel, argued that the CID botched their jobs at the crime scene, losing or compromising valuable evidence. He also floated a credible theory of alternative suspects, claiming to have found Helena Stockley, the woman in the floppy hat. And I watched an interview of Helena. Unfortunately, she passed away from cirrhosis of the liver, but she admitted to being with some guys when they killed the MacDonald family. And she claims that they were angry at Dr. MacDonald because he was not sympathetic to the drug addicts in the area. And there was a lot of drugs around Fort Bragg. And they were trying to pay him back. That's why they left him alive, to torture him. They slaughtered his family and left him alive just to mentally torture him. That's what she claimed. Okay, so they found Helena Stockley, the woman in the floppy hat, and her boyfriend, a drug-using Army veteran named Greg Mitchell, as well as witnesses who claimed Helena Stockley had confessed to her involvement in the murders. And I have seen her. I watched an interview of her last night, and she did admit to being in the house. But like I said, she passed away years ago. After a 5-month inquisition, MacDonald was released and received an honorable discharge in December. By July 1971, he was living in Long Beach, California, and working at the St. Mary Medical Center. Colette's parents turned against Jeffrey MacDonald. Initially, Colette's mother and stepfather, Mildred and Freddie Kassab, fully supported Jeffrey MacDonald, believing him innocent. Freddie Kassab testified for Jeffrey at his Article 32 hearing. But all that changed when they reportedly received a disturbing phone call from MacDonald in November 1970, during which he claimed to have hunted down and killed one of the intruders. While MacDonald explained away the calls as an attempt to get an obsessive Freddie Kassab, I think that's how he said, to let go of the investigation, the revenge story made the Kassabs uneasy. Their suspicions were stoked by several media appearances Jeffrey MacDonald made, including one on the Dick Cavett Show, in which he showed no signs of grief or outrage over the murders of his family. Instead, Jeffrey spoke angrily of the Army's mishandling of the case, going so far as to accuse the CID investigators of lying, covering up evidence, and scapegoating him for their bungling. MacDonald's behavior and what they deemed arrogant demeanor led the Kassabs to think that Jeffrey MacDonald might have actually murdered their daughter and grandchildren after all. After reading a full transcript of MacDonald's Article 32 hearing, they were convinced. Yeah, after Colette's, it was actually her stepfather. He read all of the court documents, and he was totally convinced that Jeffrey MacDonald had killed his stepdaughter and grandchildren. Believing MacDonald to be guilty, in 1971, Freddie Kassab and CID investigators returned to the crime scene, where they attempted to recreate the events of the killings as described by Jeffrey MacDonald, only to arrive at the conclusion that his account was totally implausible. Concerned that Jeffrey was going to get away with murder, in April of 1974, the aging Kassabs filed a citizen's complaint against their former son-in-law. In August, a grand jury convened to hear the case in Raleigh, North Carolina. Jeffrey waived his right and appeared as the first witness. In 1975, Jeffrey MacDonald was indicted on one count of first-degree murder in the death of one of his daughters, 2 counts of second-degree murder for the deaths of his wife and second child. While Jeffrey awaited trial, he was released on a $100,000 bail. During this time, his lawyer appealed to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals to dismiss the charges on the grounds that his right to a speedy trial had been violated. The decision was overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court on May 1st, 1978, and MacDonald was remanded for trial. Okay, now let's go to the trial and verdict. The trial opened on July 16, 1979 in federal court in Raleigh, North Carolina, with Judge Franklin Dupree presiding, the same judge who'd heard grand jury arguments 5 years before. The prosecution entered into evidence a 1970 Esquire magazine found at the crime scene. The issue featured an article of the Manson family murders, which they argued had given Jeffrey MacDonald the blueprint for his so-called hippie murder scenario. The prosecution also called an FBI lab technician, whose testimony regarding physical evidence from the stabbings wholly contradicted the events as described by MacDonald. In Helena Stockley's testimony, she claimed never to have been inside the MacDonald home. Now, Helena Stockley changed her story. She admitted to being in the home, and then she said they didn't have anything to do with it, but she did suffer from drug abuse and schizophrenia. Okay, when the defense attempted to call rebuttal witnesses to refute her assertions, they were denied by Judge Dupree. MacDonald took the stand in his own defense, but despite a lack of motive, he was unable to come up with a convincing argument to disprove the prosecution's theories of the murders. On August 26, 1979, he was convicted of second-degree murder for the deaths of Colette and Kimberly, and first-degree murder of Kristen. The appeals. On July 29, 1980, a panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals overturned Jeffrey MacDonald's conviction, again as a violation of his Sixth Amendment right to a speedy trial. In August, he was released on a $100,000 bail. MacDonald returned to his job as the head of emergency medicine at the Long Beach Medical Center. When the case was heard once again in December, the Fourth Circuit upheld their earlier decision, but the U.S. government appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. Oral arguments in the case took place in December 1981. On March 31, 1982, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 that MacDonald's right to a speedy trial had not been violated. He was sent back to prison. Subsequent appeals to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals in the U.S. Supreme Court have been denied. A 2014 appeal was based on DNA testing of hairs found on Colette's legs and hands that didn't match any members of the MacDonald family. It was denied in December of 2018. Jeffrey MacDonald continues to maintain his innocence. He was originally eligible for parole in 1990, but refused to consider it because he said he would have to have an admission of guilt. He's since married and is next eligible for parole in May 2020, and he did not apply for parole. He's never applied for parole because he says that he would have to admit he's guilty, and he is not guilty. I want to pull up something about what the prosecutors think actually happened that night so I can read it to you guys. And I'll look at the chat in just a second. It's a really good movie. You guys should check it out, Fatal Vision. Let me go up here. I wanted to read exactly what the prosecutors thought he did. Okay. So he claims that intruders came into the house, and guess what? It was raining like hell that night and cold, and there was no footprints on the carpet. He claimed that the hippie lady had on a pair of like white, those go-go boots they used to wear, and he could see the rain dripping off of them, but there was no prints on the carpet or anything. So when the military police first got to the crime scene, they had to basically try to break in. The doors was locked. I think they finally went around back and found one door unlocked, and they came in through that way. Okay, it says the front door was locked and the military police were hesitant to break in. One found a back door to a utility room open. He went inside and found the carnage. The utility room led to the master bedroom where Colette MacDonald, 4 months pregnant, lay on her back on the floor. Blood soaked her pajamas and the carpet beneath her head from dozens of stab wounds to her neck, chest, and blows from a bat or club that fractured her skull. Jeffrey MacDonald lay face down, his head on Colette's shoulders or chest. He was wearing his pajama bottoms. His pajama top was on Colette's body. MacDonald had a stab wound that partially deflated his lung. Of course, the word pig was smeared in blood on the headboard of the bed. MacDonald stirred and told the military police to check on his children. Down the hall from the master bedroom, 5-year-old Kimberly, 2-year-old Christian were in their beds. Kimberly had been beaten in the head and stabbed. Kristen was stabbed to death. The hall ended at the living room. A crime scene sketch depicts the coffee table on its side on top of a stack of magazines. A flower pot was nearby with the plant and its root ball lying on the floor next to it. There was a pair of eyeglasses on the floor by a wall with a speck of blood on them. Here's MacDonald's story. Jeffrey MacDonald appeared partially conscious when the police found him, according to the books and court records. In the house and in later interviews, he gave his description of what happened. Jeffrey had been asleep on the living room couch and woke up to the sound of screaming. He thought it was Colette or possibly little Kimberly. When Jeffrey awoke, he saw two white men, a black man, and a white woman in the living room with him. He said the black man wore an army jacket with sergeant stripes on the shoulder, and the woman had blonde hair, a floppy hat, and brown boots. Oh, my bad. I thought he said white boots. The woman appeared to be holding a candle. MacDonald recounted the woman was saying, "Kill the pigs, acid is groovy." MacDonald said he fought the intruders. One hit him in the head with a bat or club, which he said he grabbed. He said he was stabbed with an ice pick. He said he kept fighting until he fell unconscious. Jeffrey said he awoke on the hallway floor, then searched the house and found the bodies. He said he pulled a knife from Colette's chest. Investigators found a knife in the bedroom. They also found a blood-stained club, an ice pick, and another knife in the backyard. At the time, Fort Bragg was an open post with no security gates or checkpoints to stop anyone from entering and roaming as they pleased. The initial report of the killings was the top of the story in Fayetteville. Hold on a minute. The initial report of the killings was the top story in the Fayetteville Observer that afternoon. Officer's wife, children found slain at Fort Bragg. Longtime crime reporter Pat Reese wrote that Colette and the children were apparently murder victims of a ritualistic hippie cult. The killings and the parallels with the Manson murders 6 months earlier put people on edge, said Cumberland County Commissioner Jimmy Keefe, who was 8 at the time and whose father was a Special Forces soldier. It's funny, Jeffrey MacDonald was a trained Green Beret, trained killing machine, and there was really nothing out of place besides the coffee table being turned over and a flower pot. He must not have fought him too hard. Okay, let's look at what it says. The investigation. Okay, Colette was stabbed 16 times with a knife, 21 times with an ice pick. She was hit in the head with a club at least 6 times. Both her arms were broken, as though she had been defending herself. Little Kimberly was hit twice in the head, stabbed with a knife 8 to 10 times in her neck. 2-year-old Kristen was stabbed 17 times with a knife and had 15 puncture wounds in her chest. Her hands were cut in what appeared to be defensive wounds. Accounts differ to the overall severity of MacDonald's injuries, but there is no question they were light compared to what his wife and children suffered. Kind of reminds me of the Darlie Routier case. Those kids were butchered and she had superficial wounds. Now, her defense attorneys like to make out that the wounds were worse than they really were. Yes, her neck was cut at looked like she cut her neck herself because the cut was a slant. And it was close to the main artery, but if you get cut anywhere in the neck, it's going to be close to the main artery. But I digress. I'm just saying, this kind of reminds me of that case where the adults were barely injured and the kids were butchered. Okay. Let's see. I was trying to scroll this. So what they think is him and Colette fought in the bedroom. They were known for having a lot of arguments. Things got out of hand. She picked up something and hit him on the head or something. And he just went crazy on her and started beating her. And he took that board to her. And when he was taking that board to her, little 5-year-old, what's her name? Kimberly, walked in and he accidentally hit her. That's what they think. And he knew he had to cover up the crime scene. So he decided to finish killing the little girl and go in and kill little 2-year-old Kristen. I think the reason that he was charged with first-degree murder for killing Kristen is because they said it was premeditated. Because she was laying in her bed asleep. She didn't see anything. And he chose to go in there and kill her as well to make up an alibi. Hey, Pamela, good morning. I've read the books and saw the movie. Pregnant women are more likely to be murdered in an abusive relationship. I think he may have resented the responsibility of his growing family and was enraged. You know, you would have thought he made pretty good money, even back in 1970, being a doctor. I'm not sure he was in the army at the time. Now he's remarried. He has been married to another woman for about 18 years. Let me pull up and read to y'all what went on in court yesterday. I'm not sure if he was actually in the courtroom or if he was there by video chat. But they are requesting that he be released from prison because of his health. Let me get it pulled up. And they did live in like a, this wasn't a house that this happened in. This was like an apartment complex on the Fort Bragg base. Isn't that weird that they didn't have any security checkpoints? So there's the apartment thing. Jeffrey MacDonald looks a lot different now, which is 77 years old. It's been 50 years ago. Can y'all believe that? Former Army captain and ex-surgeon Jeffrey MacDonald, who is serving 3 life sentences for the high-profile slaying of his pregnant wife and 2 young daughters more than 50 years ago, is once again seeking his freedom. MacDonald, whose story was told in the best-selling true crime book Fatal Vision by late journalist Joe McGinnis, has a hearing Thursday afternoon in the Eastern District of North Carolina to determine whether his motion for compassionate release will be granted. So the judge did hear the case yesterday. He heard from both sides. It says it's unclear when the judge will issue his decision. Now, he says he's got something wrong with his kidneys. He's scared of getting the coronavirus. He's got something wrong with his kidneys. He needs kidney dialysis. I don't think he started the dialysis yet. I think he plans to. There he is when he was on trial. I think it took them like 10 years after the murders, before he was actually convicted. Now, some of y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. Let's pull up some pictures of the girls. I saw this in the news last night, so I read up a little bit about it. I still got a lot to learn about this case. And I thought it would be a good way to end their True Crime Week discussing this. I like discussing, it's a sad case, but I like discussing the vintage crimes, the older crimes. I guess a 1970 crime would be considered vintage. So there's Colette, Kimberly, and Kristen. How could he do that to them? Let me see. Let me look at the chat here. The knives in the ice pick were in the backyard. Makes me wonder how they think he stabbed himself without leaving a blood trail. There was blood all over the house. And here's the thing. Everybody in the family had a different blood type. So prosecutors were able to use that blood analysis to put together their theory of what they think happened. They think him and Colette argued. She picked up something, hit him in the forehead. And then he went crazy on her, started hitting her, and he got that piece of wood and was hitting her. And when he was drawing it back, 5-year-old Kimberly had got up out of the bed to come and see what was happening with her mother, and he accidentally hit her with that 2x4. I think it was a 2x4. And he carried her back to her bedroom. Then he decided he had to come up with the story. So he finished killing his wife, stabbing her using a nice pick and a knife. Then he went in there and finished killing Kimberly. I believe he hit her with that board again, stabbed her multiple times. Kristen was asleep in her crib bed, and he went in there and started stabbing her. Oh, I guess it makes me vintage. No, Cheryl, you're not vintage. Hey, age is just a number. Hey, Tuesday, hey, followed the case since 1974 when I first read the book. I lived near Fayetteville, been to the duplex where they lived, went on base, looked at all the microfilm regarding this case. Oh my gosh, that is so cool, Tuesday. I would love to read the book. I'm going to be reading the book. I watched the movie a long time ago. Now, I reckon he had numerous affairs. He was a handsome man, such a waste. And just think, if he hadn't murdered his families, those little girls would be grown women with their own families more than likely right now. He would have grandchildren. They will be forever young, that's for sure. So sad. I still have mixed feelings. You know what? I have thought to myself Tuesday, is it possible this man did not kill his family? It's a very good possibility because of that Helena Stockley, her story. She really did have a boyfriend that had those army stripes on his army jacket, an African American guy. And someone allegedly saw her in that floppy hat right out from the MacDonald house. It's a good possibility that they could have came in and killed that family. Now, her story is Dr. MacDonald was asleep on the couch. He had fell asleep reading a book, and I guess his reading glasses was laying on him too. And I remember from reading about the crime scene, those reading glasses were found in the living room and that book. They say that they were pissed off. Helena admitted that they went in and killed the MacDonald family. She admitted it to her mother. She admitted it in a news interview. But no one took her serious because she had a history of using acid, mescaline, and things, and she had a history of schizophrenia. Yeah, she said she was there. I watched a video last night. Unfortunately, this lady died of cirrhosis of the liver some years back. Yeah, it was only what, 6 months after the Manson murders. And here's the thing, she was a confidential informant, Helena Stockley was, for the police. She admitted to the police officer that she used to work with that they were there that night. He reported all this. He called Fort Bragg's investigators, the military police, and reported all of this. And that cop even told him, like, she's real into the Manson family. She was so into the Tate murders that she wanted to know exactly when Sharon Tate's baby died, when she was being murdered, and all this and that. Yes, there was a true crime. I think it said Esquire magazine Tuesday. Magazine there at the MacDonald home. I've wondered if he paid her. He did have dealings with her and her boyfriend and friends because they had come to him trying to get prescriptions. Now, they intended to go to Dr. MacDonald's house that night to make him write out a prescription, a narcotics prescription. And then when they got there, they decided to murder the family. Now, she says she didn't partake in it. But here's something interesting she said to the police officer she used to work with. She said while she was there, she rode a horsey and broke the horsey. Inside one of the little girl's bedroom was a hoppy horse, a little wooden one of the small ones, rocking horse. You know, the little ones a kid can get on. What if she really was there? What if she's just not, what if she's telling the truth? What if she was telling the truth? I don't know what to think about this case. I need to read over all of the blood evidence again, because because I just kind of skimmed it last night. So I've not researched this case a whole lot. Um, I would like to do another live stream on this, maybe have somebody up here that's familiar with this case to help me. No, Colette's stepfather didn't believe Jeffrey MacDonald was guilty at first until he read all the documents, and then he was convinced of it. Now, I believe Colette's got a brother that's still alive, and he doesn't want Jeffrey MacDonald to ever walk the streets again. Let me go over here and see what it says about his new wife. Can you believe these women married these murderers? Now, his new wife said that he will be staying with her if he is released from prison. He's not going to get released, guys. Let me get pulled back up. I think he's been married for about 18 years. Oh, that's the wrong article. Let me go back up. I can't. I think her name is Catherine MacDonald, if I'm not mistaken. Gosh, it's hard to believe it's been 50 years. Is it been 50 or 51 years? I think it's been 51 years. Let's see. I'm trying to scroll this article. Okay, so he did apply for parole in 2005. He was denied. I'm pretty sure that's the only time he's applied for parole. It says after exhausting all his appeals, he applied for compassionate release in November of 2020 on the grounds he could suffer severe illness or death as a result of contracting COVID-19. Hey, buddy, I got news for you. There's a lot of people in prison that's got failing health. They're not going to be let out because of it. Neither are you, bud. Okay, earlier the same year, he had waived his rights to 2 parole hearings. Dr. MacDonald's underlying medical conditions constitutes extraordinary and compelling reasons for a prison reduction, wrote his lawyer, Hart Miles. Okay, on January 11th, Jeffrey tested positive for the virus without experiencing any symptoms and called the results a false positive. Okay, on March 3rd, he refused the vaccine, the COVID-19 vaccine, although he suffers from chronic kidney disease, high blood pressure, and a history of skin cancer. To the extent that any risks remain, he has voluntarily assumed it by rejecting the risk mitigating measures offered to him. He cannot reasonably expect that prolonging his risk by declining vaccination will be rewarded with a sentence reduction. Exactly. The horrific nature of the crime also does not support release, wrote the prosecutor, who hammered home the point by including gruesome crime scene photos of MacDonald's slain little girls and wife. To release him would undermine the seriousness of his crimes, wrote Harris. That is especially true when the victims were innocent children, his own children, and he has never accepted responsibility or shown remorse for his actions. Well, my jury's still out on this case. I don't know what to think about it because, I mean, he describes this woman with these intruders, this woman with a blonde wig on and a floppy hat and boots, and here this woman, Helena Stockley, describes wearing that night. She did, and she tells about being inside the MacDonald home. But when she testified in court, she recanted all that. So who knows? Who knows what's true with this case? It's a mystery still to me. I think it's a pretty good possibility he did murder his family. That's what I think. But it is possible that maybe there were some intruders. I would like to see a psychological evaluation on him. Well, there's one thing for sure about this guy. He does not show a lot of empathy or compassion towards his slain daughters and pregnant wife. You know, if this guy really did do this, I actually think he's worse than Chris Watts because of the brutality of the murders. Guys, please quit arguing. Lady, don't argue with Smokey, please. He's just sitting there. Oh, don't be a grump. Samara, I'm definitely looking into this case. Samara, watch Fatal Vision. You can find it right here on YouTube. It's based on the book Fatal Vision. I want to read the book. I want to read the book. Did he truly try to save them? If people were attacking his family, it would be over my dead body. Well, investigators didn't think he really tried to save his family because he was a trained fighter. He was a Green Beret. And really, there was nothing messed up in the home besides the coffee table being turned over, a flower pot, the book he was reading, and a pair of reading glasses on the floor. It was very violent, very personal, and overkill. You're so right, Pamela. So right. I'm going to read the book Tuesday. The books are always better than the movies. But if you don't have time to read a book, watch Fatal Vision here on YouTube. Crap, they may have it on Amazon Prime or Netflix or something. I love discussing the vintage cases or the older cases. I'm not sure if 1970 would be considered vintage, but I mean, why would intruders, well, never mind, that's a dumb question. I was going to say, why would they butcher the kids like that and them not even knowing them? But look what the Manson family did to Sharon Tate and her friends. They didn't know those people and they butchered them. It's a good book, Pamela says in Tuesday. Is it Tuesday Low? A Green Beret is like special forces. I don't believe they could get the better of him, especially if they were strung out. Well, I mean, even if he was a Green Beret, I was just thinking, you know, 3 grown men against him. How many men did they say there were? I already forgot. Like 3 and Helena Stockley. So it would have probably been hard to fight off 3, but damn, he should have been able to kick their ass and him a Green Beret. But allegedly, he was asleep and woke up to Colette or Kimberly screaming. Sapphire, I'm vintage 1971. Y'all, I don't mean that in a bad way. I thought it was vintage 1970. Anyhow, I don't think they're going to release him. Oh, yeah, I went to look for his new wife's name. Crap, it got sidetracked. Oh, let me go see if I can find it. I think it's Catherine. These women that married these killers, they got something bad wrong with them. They're missing something inside of themselves, and they feel like they are in complete control of the relationship when they date these people that's serving life sentences. They know these people's not going to go out and have affairs unless they do it with someone else in the prison. So they have like complete control of the relationship. They must not, like in real life, they must feel powerless. So they date these people in prison. It gives them power and control. That's the only thing I can figure out. I'm not a professional. I'm calling y'all vintage. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not calling y'all vintage. I called it a vintage true crime case. Oh, my goodness. Thank God it's the weekend, y'all. Tomorrow night, we're going to play some Family Feud or some 90s trivia. Probably around 8 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll set up the live stream today. I'm not sure if we're going to do Family Feud or the 90s trivia. We need to do some true crime trivia again, but crap, I about asked all the questions before when we played trivia. It seems like when you look at true crime trivia, it's always the same cases. He was a doctor. He didn't see battlefield. No, see, here's what he thought. He thought when he joined the Green Berets and stuff that he was going to be sent to Vietnam. But here's the thing. If you join the Green Berets and you're a doctor, you wasn't getting sent overseas. So he never got to go. Yeah, we're going to have a game night. Oh, yeah, before I get off here, I finished my Starry Night painting. I'm going to show you guys. I think I need some glossier stuff, though. Something, I've been using that Mod Podge. I think I need something a little bit more, got a little bit more shine to it, I should say. Let me get my picture pulled up here and I'll show y'all. And I've done started on my sloth painting. Let me tell y'all what I done. I was so excited to have my painting finished that I didn't even use my roller across it to push down my drills on my painting. I put the Mod Podge on there, and after I did it, I said, oh, crap. I didn't even press down the drills, which they were on there pretty good. That little rolling thing just kind of helps you if there's any that wasn't pushed down good. But yeah, so there's the painting. Look at it. They're all about perfect. I love it. Mark's gonna build me like this frame with instead of like a frame with glass, it's gonna be like acrylic. Yeah. And when I get all my diamond paintings done, I'm gonna hang them up as my background for when I'm on camera when we have game nights and things. Thank you, Cement Shoes. I really took my time with Starry Night. And my little tool I showed y'all yesterday, every time I get, 3 or 4 drills on, I take that little tool and make sure that they're all straight. You can't get them perfectly straight. And here's another thing. When you put the Mod Podge on there, kind of painted on there, sometimes it will get under your drills and move them just a little bit. I noticed that yesterday. I noticed it moved a couple where the moon's at. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to try the spray-on stuff to make it all glossy. I have the same picture of my wall. I got 3 more Van Gogh paintings I need to do, but I wanted to work on one of the sloth paintings that I got. I got 2 sloth paintings. Shout out Sapphire. She surprised me with those. Thank you so much, girl. I was tickled pink. I opened up the envelope. I was expecting this little pen she was sending me, this little light up pen to put the diamonds on your painting. And I was like, gosh, that's a big envelope. And I opened it up and there was 2 diamond paintings of sloths. So I was tickled to death. It made my day. I got enough diamond paintings to get me through a couple months. They become addictive. I'll sit there for hours putting those drills on. If my dogs are settled down, yeah, it's become it becomes addictive kind of. Anyhow, I hope y'all enjoyed this morning's stream. Guys, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep this 10 a.m. time or not. Like, y'all are not used to it. I'm having a hard time with it. I was just thinking we may go back to about 10:30, 10:15, and I'll just have to work around Mark. If he interrupts us, gets the dogs barking, he just interrupts us. But I'd really like to go back to our normal time. Sorry I changed it. Now I'm thinking about changing it back. I'll let y'all know for sure, but more than likely we're going to go back to 10:30 because my people's just not used to this time. I'm not used to it. And by the way, if anyone wants to come up on stream and hang out with me while we play Family Feud or 90s Trivia tomorrow night, you're more than welcome. You don't have to be on camera. I'm going to be on camera. Just because I don't get to during the week on my morning streams because I just don't have time to get the stream planned, the dogs, chickens, goats took care of, and get cleaned up, get my makeup on. Thank you, Mike. You have a great weekend too and be safe. I just love you. You're so sweet. Anyways, y'all, thanks for your support. I will see y'all tomorrow night. Have a great Friday. Be safe, be kind, and peace.